Com or phone 0208 339 6036. That number again, 0208 339 6036. And across all social media platforms. Spot Blue.
हमारा मिशन अल्लाह की रजा मोहम्मद से वफा पाकिस्तान का दिफा हम हैं सलाम बीसीआर
एक्सीडेंट हुआ फिक्र नहीं हाजिर हैं क्लेम्स के बादशाह मिस्टर कॉम्पनसेटर क्लेम्स मैनेजमेंट एक्सपर्ट्स यहाँ आपको हर किस्म की रिप्लेसमेंट गाड़ी दस्तयाब है टैक्सी ड्राइवर्स या प्राइवेट हजरात के लिए बेस्ट एंड फास्ट सर्विस गारंटीड हर नए केस का आपको 2000 पाउंड तक रिफरल फीस भी मिल सकता है सो व्हाई वेस्ट टाइम कॉल द बेस्ट कॉल मिस्टर कॉम्पनसेटर ऑन 0161 7311999 मिस्टर कॉम्पनसेटर क्लेम्स मैनेजमेंट एक्सपर्ट्स 163 165 Dickinson Road Manchester
Assalamu alaikum, I'm Mufti Taiba and you're listening to Salam BCR on medium wave 1566 and on salambcr.com.
मैं लोगों से मोहब्बत में अनाएं छोड़ देता हूँ वफाएं याद रखता हूँ जफाएं छोड़ देता हूँ अस्सलाम वालेकुम दोस्तों मैं हूँ इफ्तिखार रफी एक्टर राइटर शायर और कॉलम नवीस वीलॉगर फ्रॉम पाकिस्तान और सलाम बीसीआर जी हाँ ये है नया रेडियो चैनल जिस पे आप मेरी आवाज सुन रहे हैं
अस्सलाम वालेकुम मैं शहजाद पप्पू आप सुन रहे हैं सलाम बीसीआर
Salam BCR, medium wave 1566 and online. Your home of entertainment. Broadcasting across Greater Manchester and beyond. Check our website, project29.org.uk.
क्या आप अपने कारोबार को फलता फूलता देखना चाहते हैं अगर आपका जवाब हाँ में है तो आज ही इस्लाम बीसीआर से राब्ता करें फोन 079126222961
हमारा मिशन अल्लाह की रजा मोहम्मद से वफा पाकिस्तान का दिफा हम हैं सलाम बीसीआर
जी हाँ यकीनन हम हैं सलाम BCR my dear people welcome to Salam BCR it's 3:30 and I have my guest with me this afternoon my dear friend Udayan Prasad and we will now go live to him and check out here we are we got him I want to just frame him right Udayan bear with me my friend I want to get you framed absolutely right like you as a as a director you would say get the frame right so we need to get the frame right absolutely right here that's brilliant lovely you see Udayan you have plenty of assistants I have me and me as the assistants as the cameraman as the director as the script writer everything
well, that's because you're multifaceted, multi-talented. Unlike me, I can only do one job at a time.
Well, then, thank you very much, first of all, for agreeing to come on the show and having a chat with me here. It's been a long, long time.
It has, and it's a real pleasure. It's lovely to see you again after all these years. In almost in person, but
yes.
Certainly live.
Yes,
that's for sure.
Yes,
so yes. It's great to see you. Yeah,
brilliant. And as I said, thank you so much. So people, Udayan, I worked. How long ago was it when we did Brothers in Trouble? It was Brothers in Trouble, wasn't it?
Brothers in Trouble was 95. And My Son the Fanatic was 96. I think 96, 97, something like that.
Udayan Prasad is, as now you will have gathered, he's a film director. But the idea of this conversation, and literally is a conversation, that I want to just take Udayan back to his very earliest memories. Share with us, literally, that's what it is, sharing your experience. And if you have any questions to ask me, then please feel free to do so. It's a two-way conversation, Udayan. And as I said, and thank you for the FedEx. That was really useful. It was very useful. So maybe go back to that and start from there. Where would you like to start on your journey?
Wherever you like.
Well, I think. Were you born in India? Or were you born here?
I was born in India. I was born and we came to Britain when I was 9.
I was 10. Okay, so 9. And what year would that have been?
I was born in central India in the state of Maharashtra in a place called Sevagram.
Okay.
Which was an ashram established by Gandhi during the independence struggle. And the reason I was born there was because both my parents, who came from opposite ends of the country, my father was from Dehradun in Uttar Pradesh, right in the north.
Okay.
And my mother was from Kerala, right in the south. But they were both very politically minded, and they decided to join the independence struggle and met in Sevagram, which is where I was born.
And from that FedEx, your mum was the third or the fourth wife of your grandfather. No, not your mum, your grandmother.
My mum wasn't my grandfather's wife.
Sorry, no. I beg your pardon. Your father.
Yeah.
Yes.
So my father's mother was my grandfather's
Wife.
fourth wife.
Yes, fourth wife.
My grandmother, my paternal grandmother, was my grandfather's fourth wife.
Fourth wife.
That's yeah.
Okay.
Numbers 1, 2, and 3 died without having any children, and to this day I have no idea how or why. And
right.
As I say in the TED talk, I'm not sure I want to know. But anyway, that's how it was, and nobody I know knows what happened, because obviously they all came afterwards. And whereas my father, then what happened was he had a brother, an elder brother, and they both got very much interested and involved in politics in very different ways, actually.
Because when you mentioned in the TEDx your grandfather, he was a businessman.
He was a cloth merchant. He was a
very
baniya.
Successful one to at the end of the day as well. So politics and business.
Yes, well, I mean, that's where it all went wrong for my grandfather, really. He was a very successful businessman. He gave birth to 2 children who I'm sure he wanted them to take over the business and be businessmen like him. And because he wasn't around, it meant that they could choose their own paths in life. And my grandmother, bless her, allowed them to do that.
Sure.
She was very young as well. She let them she adored them. They adored her, but she let them choose their paths. And one became a communist activist fighting for independence, and the other followed the teachings of Gandhi and fighting for independence in his way. So
really?
That's what happened. And between them, they managed to more or less give away the entire business empire their father had built up. So
well, maybe gave them a good, at least independence, in the sense that they didn't have to worry about sustenance and how they were going to support themselves in the family. So it probably may have been I think a blessing in a way then that they had this financial worryless.
No question about it. No question about it, because obviously we know what the life in the subcontinent is like. You can't just go off and do whatever you want unless you have the means to be able to do that.
Absolutely.
And so there is absolutely that. And but they felt at the time, that there were more important things to deal with. That they wanted the country to be rid of its colonial masters, and they had to play a part in that. I think my uncle, actually, my Tao, he dedicated himself 100% to politics.
Really?
Whereas my father was an artist.
Right.
And he went off to Bengal, to Shantiniketan, which was where Rabindranath Tagore had set up his amazing university and art school.
Okay.
To study there. And whilst my father was there, Gandhi came to visit Tagore, and he took a photograph of the two of them, which is the only one in existence, of Gandhi and Tagore in Shantiniketan.
Really?
Of course, in those days, copyright didn't mean anything, but that picture has been reproduced and published any number of times, and I don't think my dad got 1 paisa for its use. But anyway, and then what happened was that Gandhi, I don't know how much your listeners, some of them will know about Sevagram, but it was meant to be the model for the future independent India.
Okay.
Self-sufficient, where we all learned everything. We weren't dependent on others. And that included education. And he wanted to set up a school. And Gandhi realized that that art was a very important part of education. So he, by then, he contacted Shantiniketan because by then Tagore had died, and they said, look, I need an art teacher.
Right.
I need somebody to come and teach an art. And they said, oh, we've got a guy here. He keeps going off on all your demonstrations and stuff here in the middle of his studies. He keeps joining all these marches and so on. Will he do? And that's how my dad ended up in Sevagram, because he became the art teacher for as requested by Gandhi.
So was your father by that time married, or was he?
No, he arrived in Sevagram, and pretty soon, pretty much at the same time, my mother arrived. And her story is great. I mean, she's also from a background where it was financially privileged. I mean, in that, she came from a kind of a pretty traditional South Indian Keralan family. She had 7 brothers and sisters, 2 brothers, 5 sisters. No, wait a minute, I'm going to do my maths right here. 5 sisters and
4 sisters.
4
Her
sisters.
being the 5th.
And all the girls older than her,
right,
were betrothed at the ages of 11, 12, 13, that kind of thing. They didn't go and live with their husbands, but they were kind of assigned husbands.
Yes.
They weren't sent to school. They didn't have formal education. But my grandmother on that side did want her daughters to have education, so she brought in a private tutor.
Right.
And this tutor introduced them to the whole, or gave them much more information than was simply available in the press, and his own opinions on what was happening with the anti-British, with the Azadi movement and all that kind of stuff. And this really inspired my mum. And when grandparents said, it's time for you to get married, she said, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to choose my own husband. You're not going to choose my husband. And by the way, I'm off to join the independence struggle.
Really?
Bye. See you later.
Right. Okay.
So she went off. They could do nothing about it because she actually had inherited the kind of stubborn streak from her own mother.
Right.
But anyway, she went off. She joined the independence struggle, and she made the family wear khadi. They had to wear homespun, boycott as many British goods, all those kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then she met this young guy from Dehradun in Sevagram. They fell in love and got married.
There we are. And then Udayan Prasad, how many of you is there in your family?
3 of us.
3.
I have an older brother and a younger sister.
And
they're
then
all here in the UK.
The journey here into UK, when did that
Sorry?
happen? The journey to
that
UK.
happened because what happened was that in 1960, my father came on a fact-finding tour to Europe.
Right.
As part of the ashram's work, to see how ideas of non-violence and Gandhian philosophy generally, how they were received in the West, and particularly in Europe. So while he was here, there was a anti-war organization, a pacifist organization, which helped conscientious objectors. And they said to him, they got to know him, they had extensive talks. They said, would you come over and be our general secretary?
Right.
We're looking for a general secretary to start in 1962 when our present one, his term ends. And so my father talked to my mum. My mum, she wanted to stay in India. She said, there's so much work to be done in India. But this is a wonderful opportunity. So let's go, but let's go for 4 years.
Okay.
So in '62, we came over to England, and I couldn't speak. I could say yes, no, thank you, please, that kind of stuff. That was the extent of my English.
How
And
old
I
were you then?
remember
You were 9. You were 9, as you said.
I was 9. I could hardly speak any English at all.
But obviously
And I
started
remember-
schooling back home.
Sorry?
You were schooling back home.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I went to the Sewagram, the school, the local school, and the education was in Hindi and Marathi.
Right.
So those were the languages that I knew. I didn't know. I couldn't speak my mother's language, Malayalam.
Right.
My father couldn't speak it either. She was completely fluent, of course, in Hindi, English, Malayalam, and she could speak Sanskrit fluently. And there's a great story, actually, that she and her sisters were all taught Sanskrit. So when a guest came, and who was a bit of a pain, and they would chat amongst themselves in Sanskrit, saying, "How the hell are we going to get rid of this guy?" That's, but of course,
Yes, fantastic. In
So-
fact, that's probably like being a white guy coming into an Asian family, and if they don't want to talk about him, or they don't want him to understand, so that's probably the
yeah,
similar
slip
thing.
into Urdu, Punjabi, whatever. You know.
Absolutely. Okay, so you came here, and then obviously schooling here, and
Schooling
so
started
really the
here.
progression from there.
You know, at that age, you pick up languages really fast. I mean, I don't know, Anwar, whether you were born in the UK or whether you were.
I was 10 when I came here then, and not a word of English. I
Yeah.
lived in a village, and absolutely not a word of English. But my father, just like your father, mum and dad, but your family came together. My father came here in 1960,
Right.
and my mum and I followed in 1966.
Right.
He
Gosh,
visited
his brothers in trouble, mate.
Pardon?
Brothers in trouble.
Absolutely, that's what I mean. When
Yeah.
we were filming that, we could actually kind of relate to it.
Yeah.
The things, and a number of people living in a house, but in our house at that time, my father had bought a really big house. We lived in Rochdale, and
Right.
it was a three-story, in fact 4-story. There was a cellar, basement, ground floor, first floor, second floor, and then an attic.
Yeah.
And so there was like 4 people, but they were all family members. My uncle, and then another uncle, and then another friend of theirs, like almost like family. And then when we came, there was myself, my mum, and my 2 sisters. So
Yeah.
I was 10, as I said, but my father helped a lot. Then I as I said, I think I say it all the time. I could I could never repay, and I never show my gratitude in the effect and work that my father and both mother put in.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And
And
within
the
6
other thing
months,
is at
within
that
6
age,
months, we were into normal classes, because what they used to do was when we came in junior school, they put us in a separate class, to learn English. And so my father, when we came home, he would have these little books, R-A-T, rat mene chua, C-A-T, cat mene billy. That's how we learned English.
Right.
But within 6 months, we were within the in the normal classes. So yeah.
Well, that's the point. I mean, you learned really fast. It was the same. And my mother and father made the point, because they both were fluent in English, obviously, that we would only speak English
Right.
at home as well, because they really wanted us to learn. And you learn very fast at that age. But the problem then was I stopped speaking Hindustani. I never spoke Shuddha Hindi, no, pure Hindi.
Right.
I always spoke Hindustani, which is a much better language in my opinion, simply because it tells you about it's the language of the subcontinent. It has Urdu words in it, Urdu, Hindi, all mixed up, and that's the culture.
Absolutely, yes.
And anyone who, So anyway, we're digressing a bit, but so I spoke that less and less and less and less, and as a result, my sort of Hindustani is like stuck at the 9-year-old level. It's not great. And
But we miss then I don't think we're this is something that I think is really nice to discover, and because our next generations, they hear, English is something that they learn automatically because they go to school and they converse with, but I think our own culture, our own kind of like, that ethnicity, the little, how can I put it, language, when you go back, yes, people in India, people in Pakistan, they've progressed, they speak English very, very well, but we don't converse with them in their language. We can't really relate to them in the way they can to us. And don't you think we're missing out on that?
I don't know if it's missing out. I think it's just a normal progression of things. Things change, nothing stands still.
Are we not losing? Are we not losing something, part of our heritage?
Well, of course, we're losing. We're definitely losing something, but we're also gaining stuff.
Absolutely,
I think.
yes.
That's the thing. What happens? I mean, what happens, particularly when we immigrants, we stay in one place. We think that the place we've come from isn't changing. It is changing, and it's changing fast.
Absolutely.
And we go back and we think, what the hell's going on here?
Yes.
And you say, that's life. You have to say to yourself, that's life. Things change, things progress, things don't stay the same. And particularly now, the rate of change is getting faster and faster and faster. And so, yes, there are losses, but there are gains also. Of course, I wish. Could I speak fluent Hindustani? Of course, I do. Can I hold a conversation? Yes, I can hold.
You can. Oh, you can.
Yeah, a bit of a conversation. इसमें काफी अंग्रेजी लफ्ज भी आएंगे.
आ जाते हैं, बिल्कुल.
लेकिन तो गुफ्तगू तो होगा.
Yes. Well, brilliant. Well, brilliant. And then if you were in that situation, for example, I remember you saying that you went to visit India and they were doing some filming, and if you stayed there for a short while, whatever, you'd be back into the flow of it. It wouldn't be that difficult.
Absolutely. But what's really weird is, I mean, it's interesting what you're saying. As my father, when he was getting much older, last couple of times I saw him, he died 11 years ago now.
Right.
But I went to see, he'd gone back. He'd gone
Okay.
back to Delhi, and he was living in Delhi, and I took him for a walk, and we went for a walk in central Delhi's beautiful park. And he was a great gardener and all the rest of it. And so we're walking around the park, and there were people picnicking on the grass and all the rest of it. And I was thinking, there's something really weird happening here. I couldn't put my finger on it. And then suddenly I thought, everyone's speaking in English. What on earth's going on? I'm in Delhi, in a park,
Yes.
and all the conversation is in English. I don't go to my local park here. I don't go, and you don't go to your parks in Bury or Rochdale or Manchester or wherever, and you hear people speaking in French, only in French or Polish or whatever language you want. You're thinking, what? That really was weird.
Right.
I thought, no, come on, guys. You've got to at least use some languages from the subcontinent. Because the whole of India lives in Delhi, just the same, I'm sure, in Lahore or in Islamabad. Everyone comes there from all parts. So you'll hear Baloch, you'll hear
Surely.
Pashtun, you'll hear Punjabi, Sindhi, everything. You'll hear that. But I was only hearing English.
Right. And
So
you got
that
to the
was
bottom
very
of that.
strange.
Why was that? Was it? I mean,
It's a middle class thing, I think.
Okay.
I suspect what happens is that in this particular area on this day, we just were walking past lots of middle class people, and English medium schools are the places to send your kids to if you're from the middle classes and all that kind of stuff, and perhaps it's the fashion, but I think that did sadden me, I must say. I was thinking,
Imran Khan, I've got him on their screen at the moment. He's giving lectures. He's going around around the whole country, doing a lot of jalsas, political gatherings. And this is one of the points that he makes out, Udayan, where the elitists, they think in order to be accepted or to be different, they must be taught in English, and that English must be the priority. When in fact, he thinks of it the other way. That we must have our own culture, our own languages must go side by side. So we don't, we're actually, wherever we are, we value our own culture, we value our own language, but also at the same time give the same equality and consideration to English side by side, rather than giving one precedence to the other.
Yeah. No, I think that's a very fair point to make. But anyway, that's
Yeah, and then education here, university.
Yes. What happened was we thought we were coming for 4 years.
Oh, right, yes,
Right. So we came and towards the end of the 4 years, the organization, was called War Resistance International, for whom my father was working. They said, look, the normal term for a general secretary is 7 years. Would you consider staying an extra 3? Now, my mother was anxious to get back. She felt that she would have been she felt herself less useful in England than and there were things she wanted to do back in India. But she said, look, if that's the norm, then yes, let's stay for the extra 3 years. But then what happened was, in the 7th year, she died. She had brain tumor and she died. And then my father thought, well, that's enough of a disruption to the kids' lives. I can't, now is not the time to take them back and throw them into something else. My brother had gone to university. I was in the 6th form at school. My sister had been here since the age of 2. She was in school, and he thought, okay, don't make any decisions in haste. Let's just leave it like this. And before you know it, the 7 years became 60.
You see, I mean, you say 4 years. I mean, that reminds me that most of the people that I know locally and our elders, they always said, they came here for 5 years.
Yeah.
They came for 5 years, and as you said, 6 years, 7 years, 4 years became 60. And we are now, my family, as I said, my father came here in 1960, and now we're in 2022, coming on to 23 almost. So that's 40, 50, 60 years.
62 years, yeah.
62 years.
I mean, I've no idea. You do, fate throws things at you. Life throws things at you. And I have sometimes thought, well, what if my mother hadn't died? What would have happened? Would we have gone back? Would she have said she was going back, but maybe I would have been at university or about to go? She said, okay, you can go to university, but we're going, whatever it was. But anyway.
When I look at people here, I find, in a way, I kind of find it sad. A lot of them still say, they said we've been here 3rd, 4th generation now, but many of them, they don't consider that this is home. And I kind of really find that really tragic, in that they're not setting roots. And if they're not setting roots, we're like gypsies, Udayan,
Yeah,
where do we belong?
Gypsies are very happy people, I have to say that right now.
Well, yes.
The thing is, because my parents were not economic migrants, and there were reasons. I made a documentary actually in '85 called A Corner of a Foreign Field, which looked at the lives of Pakistani community in Britain. And what you're telling me was the commonest story. People came intending to stay for just a few years, send back money. They built houses. You go to areas, in Kashmir, in all over Pakistan. They had built these big houses, and they said to me when we were filming, but they're all empty. Nobody's living there. We're still here.
Kotiyan living there. Donkeys are the only places people occupants. Donkeys are the occupants of these big mahal, these big koti. Absolutely.
And once a year, maybe they would go back, open the windows, let some fresh air in, then they'd lock it up and come back again. And you sort of think, I think there is a tendency that all human beings have of not to live in the moment and enjoy what's around you. You're here.
Yes.
There are lots of positives. I actually think the British Isles are incredibly beautiful, and they're so. But that's the case with every country. I haven't been to a country in the world where I haven't been for a walk or I've been taken somewhere and I thought, wow, this is so amazing. And the other thing is, I haven't been to a country in the world where everyone, I sort of think, actually, all their concerns are my concerns. How am I going to feed my kids? How are they going to be educated? Is
Yes.
the house all right? And so there is a commonality that
Yes.
we have,
Yes.
which for some idiotic reason we choose to forget about because we somehow want to separate ourselves from other people.
Mm.
They're not us, they're nothing to do with me. And I sort of think, no, that's not right. The world's amazing, it's rich. And the other common thing I've always found is that the people who are the most generous are always the poorest.
Poorest people.
Always.
We'll take a break in about 5 minutes of that because we have azan time. Unfortunately,
Great.
well, not
Of
unfortunately,
course.
but it's just at the moment Asr azan falls at 4:05. So we'll take that break then. But I just wanted, so then university, and what led you into the media field?
Well, I was.
What year would have been? I mean, for me, as I said, sorry.
Okay, so
recount.
my mother died in 1969.
Yeah.
And I was just entering sixth form. My brother, I have a very intelligent, bright brother. He'd gone to Cambridge.
Right.
We were at state school, so it was not. By then, what was the situation was this: my mother and father did not use or have access, refused to have access to what was like the old family wealth. They wanted to be self-sufficient.
Mm-hmm.
So and the pay you get for working for effectively an NGO is pathetic.
Right.
I can tell you, you earn more. I was earning more than my dad when I worked in the holidays in a factory. Right. So what happened was that I thought, oh God, my brother's gone to Cambridge. Everyone's looking at me thinking, yeah, what the hell are you going to do? I thought I better go into university.
Right.
And so I blagged my way into university to do a course I was not at all interested in. Because I thought, if I don't go to university, people are going to think even less of me. And then I realized at university that there's no point in doing a course you have no love for.
Interesting.
And I thought back, what did I really enjoy?
Right.
And what I really enjoyed while I was at school was that I chose to do an extra A level in art, and I loved it.
Right.
And I've always taken, and this is the influence of my father as well, I always took photographs.
Right.
I always took photographs. And so I said to my dad, I said, I think I'm going to leave university and I'm going to apply to art school. Of course, he was delighted.
Right.
But he would never, ever have pushed me. The rule I think my parents set for themselves is the children must find their own paths. We will not pressure them to go in one direction or the other. It's up to them.
Yes.
And if they make a mistake, they'll learn from it and move on.
Absolutely.
And that was their philosophy.
Yeah.
So I applied to art school. I managed to get in, even though I was probably the worst person at drawing in the entire intake. And then I found a cine camera. There was actually an 8mm camera, and then there was an old video camera.
Right.
And suddenly,
everything.
I could do stuff which made sense.
Yeah.
Which I couldn't do with a pencil or a paintbrush in my hand.
I was looking at just a while back, well, not a while back, I mean, just today, and Kubrick and who else? Number of Steven Spielberg. The quotes you got from them, in that, their kind of feeling was, this rather than study, get a camera, as you just said, get a camera and get out there and start filming, start making stuff. And you find your route and you find your way in. So I suppose that's something exactly that resonates with what you're saying.
Yeah, no, it was just suddenly I could line a shot up, and it was worth looking at. Whereas if I'd made a drawing, it was worth laughing at.
Okay, so what was your first break then? So again, you started doing that, and the first break, and why?
Well, I mean, you see, I think the breaks come if you're persistent, and it's you're an actor, you've been an actor. Nobody in their right minds becomes an actor or a director. It's just the stupidest thing you can do, because. I always tell students this. At any given time, 70% of all actors are unemployed. And of the 30% that are left, only 6% make a living solely by acting. Everyone else has to do something else as well. Why would you be an actor? Particularly if you had a grandfather like mine, there's no way. A businessman, no way. Acting, forget it. It's not going to happen. But and a similar kind of thing applies to people behind the camera.
Right.
It's tough, but the thing is, I say it's a disease for which there's no cure. If you've got the disease, you've got to do it.
But direction, you see, I mean, as an actor, I suppose. Well, I'm just thinking now as I'm talking to you. When you get a script and you're trying to get a feel for it and get into the same mind as the person who wrote the script. So you, as a director, is that exactly what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out, what is this story? Does it touch me? Does it move me? Is it about something? Is it interestingly constructed? Is it really a work of the imagination that I want to be involved with? Because it's hard work. And it takes everything out of you. And all the people around you suffer. Your family suffers because you're just thinking about this all the time. So it had better be worth it. So there's nothing worse than thinking or making something and thinking, I would never watch this in a million years. I mean, can you imagine? I'm very lucky. I've been very fortunate in my career. And I can, hand on heart, I can say that has never happened to me. But it's the thing that I always ask myself. If I make this, will I want to watch it? And if the answer is no, I don't touch it with a barge pole.
Really? So what was your very first commercial project?
Directing?
Directing, yes.
Well, I left. I ended up going to the National Film School in quite a roundabout way, and it took me a year to get my first professional job, and it was a documentary about South Asian artists in Britain.
Right.
And that was my first job, and then soon after that came, and this film I mentioned to you, A Corner of a Foreign Field, which was about Pakistanis in Britain. And then that led to more and more documentaries, and then along came at the same time I had ideas for films, so I started approaching writers. I approached Hanif Qureshi. I said to Hanif, I've got this idea, but they weren't for him at all, but he had seen my documentaries, he'd seen stuff. And then he met a producer in the Midlands, BBC Midlands, who was saying, oh, there aren't any filmmakers of Black and Asian origin. There aren't enough of them. And Hanif just said to him, you just haven't done your research. There are loads. He says, you just haven't bothered to look. And he gave him my name.
Right.
So I got a call and they said, would you like to do the BBC Drama Directors course? Because they used to run this thing of drama directors, which was initially mainly for BBC staff people.
Right.
And I said, sure, I'll do it. I did it. And the thing that I made from it got me my first BBC drama.
Right.
A producer saw it and she said, you really like this, will you come and do it? And it was a show called South of the Border.
Right.
Which is about two women. One was a woman of color, one was white, and from the Northeast, working class. They lived on an estate in Deptford and had become kind of private detectives, if you like, for the local community in a funny kind of a way. And then I started directing there, and then it just went from there, really.
Brilliant. Well, then we need to take a break now, my friend.
Sure.
What I'll do is because this is going to be about 7 to 8 minutes long.
Okay.
We will take a break, and I will reconnect you so you can go and have a cigarette or a coffee, whatever.
Cigarette, or maybe even go to the loo.
My friend, it's lovely. I'm really, really, really nice talking to you, my friend. And as I said, we'll be back in about 7 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Udayan. Take care. Speak to you soon.
Cheers.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. My dear people, you're listening to Salam BCR. Here we are with Udayan and myself, Anwar Haq. And we're going to take a break now, as I said, because it is Asr Azan time. We'll take a break. Here we go, and we'll be back shortly.
Salam. Salam means peace. And Salam BCR, your local radio, promotes peace. Be a part of the Salam BCR team. Salam BCR. Your community, your radio. Get involved.
हमारा मिशन अल्लाह की रजा, मोहम्मद से वफा, पाकिस्तान का दिफा, हम हैं सलाम BCR।
आप अपने वालिदैन की खिदमत उनके मरने के बाद भी कर सकते, उनके लिए पढ़ें, उनके लिए कोई सदका जारिया के काम करें, ऐसा कोई काम कर जाएं जिससे ता क़यामत उनको सवाब मिलता रहे, कोई भी चीज उनके लिए बना